There we go. So I do believe that we are now live. Apologies for the delay, folks. We'll move on to the next. So the next session is a little bit more interactive. It's a virtual roundtable discussion featuring a number of panelists covering the topic of business transformation through technology, creating and developing a manufacturing 4.0 strategy that aligns with the organization's strategic goals. So I'm very excited to have everyone here today and hope you find it an interesting discussion. Just a quick reminder, attendees of the joined in listen only mode, so you're muted. There's a Q&A section. I would encourage you to log your questions for the host, the moderator, or the panelists. If you do this while the session is on, if you think of anything, jot the question down rather than wait until the end. We will have 10 minutes at the end where we can go through these questions, but it just avoid asking putting the questions towards the back end. So I'd like to welcome the following panelists. So we have Annie Zeng, technical expert for digital twin and artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing for Ford Motor Company. David Corliss, data scientist, business analytics, information and communication technology for Stellantis. We're just waiting on Andy Buckland, who should be joining us soon. He's manager, advanced technology and smart manufacturing for General Motors. And our moderator as well is Stuart, Countess, Chief Operating Officer, Senior Vice President, Kia Motors Manufacturing, Georgia. Welcome to the panelists, and over to you. And over to you, Stuart, to kick off. Thank you.
Well, good morning and good afternoon for those in different parts of the world. And hello to my colleagues, David and Annie, and hopefully Andrew. So it's kind of interesting, I think, listening to some of the earlier panel presentations, and some of these questions are going to continue to expand on some of those particular topics. I'll ask the question and then we'll go through and let everyone provide their insight and information related to how they're approaching this from each of their own individual companies. So we'll start off, and Annie, I'll certainly ask you to go first. We all know that we're moving into this digital world, and we certainly have recognized that there's a different mindset and skill set that we also need from our staffs for the future. So can you share with us how you're driving this change in your business, ensuring that your workforce is ready for this digital transformation?
Good question. I think it's a good one to start off today's session for the digital transformation. When we look at our workforce, I think we can roughly group them into two categories. One is the group of people who will be using the technologies. That would be majority of our people. And I think the most important thing for them would be have an open mind. And they would need to work slightly differently, but hopefully the new work style should be more efficient and hopefully more simpler as well. The other type of workforce would be those who define and develop these new technologies. For these people, in addition to keep their mind open, they still need to get ready to learn. The learning is the only opportunity for us to keep up with the new technologies. And there's so many of those. All of us, especially if we are defining these technologies for the company, we have to learn. And I know someone who, for instance, has been an Excel guru. He can do everything Excel with a macro or with a Visual Basic. And now you put this person into the situation with many analytical tools. And you can expect what's going to happen. Because he's so good, he could literally reprogram all the analytical skills or tools in an Excel-based environment. But that is where he would need to learn and change his mindset to there's something that might be similar but quicker and easier for other people to pick up. So as an example, I think this is very critical for both type of people to understand we would need to work differently and we need to learn to be more receptive. I guess and then the last part I want to bring up here is from the leadership perspective. Most of us are people leaders here, I believe, or play a role here or there. How can we align our workforce toward these new technologies? We need to motivate them. And we also need to support them along the way so that they can be reskilled, or we can help them to upskill what they might need to deal with the transformation. Thanks.
Thank you. David, so how is Stellantis approaching this very same topic?
One of the things that's really important is to have a mindset of always innovating, always learning, always growing, always moving forward. It's been my own personal observation that technology has a shelf life of about 5 years. And think about any tool you're using right now. Just thinking in your own mind, what tools are you using for automation? What are you using on the plant floor? What software? Would you still buy that tool today if it looked like it looked 5 years ago? The answer is no. There's two kinds of technologies in our world: new technology and obsolete technology. With a shelf life of about 5 years, people see this in software. People need to understand that applies to processes and the way people do their work as well. One of the advantages of being to give people a little bit of background, if you haven't heard, for a few years I was a part of Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. Of course, I had a North American company, close partnership with Fiat. Now that's grown. We're now Stellantis, the fourth largest automotive manufacturer in the world, and that connection with Peugeot Citroën in France has created the new Stellantis. Europeans, I find, often have a different mindset towards innovation. They almost wouldn't call it innovation. It's simply how you do business, and that idea of always innovating. That is part of what we do, that building for the future is intrinsic to every process. One of the things I like to do myself is I try to make sure that every week in my calendar has some piece of it that's dedicated to building for the future. If you don't prepare for the future, it's simply going to pass you by. And in this industry, it'll pass you by really fast. And so the important thing is to have a mindset of constant innovation. And understand that the digital transformation isn't a project for the year. It's not a task we're going to assign. We hear a lot about digital transformation. Well, digital transformation 2020, now 2021. Digital transformation will not end. It will continue to transform this industry in ways we haven't even discovered yet. So digital transformation isn't a task. It's a new way of life. And it's going to stay with us.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of what you've said are very similar on the Kia side of the world. We recognize that there certainly is a generational change that's coming at us. The way we used to make cars 20 years ago is going to be very different. David made the comment about 5 years. I kind of compare that to years ago. A model life of a car would be 8 years. And that life cycle has gotten shorter and shorter. Well, the same is happening with this fast-paced digital transformation that we're seeing. And we've got to be able to not only strategically plan for it, but also engage the workforce that they have to be on a continual learning spectrum. Where I think we as leaders within the companies have to make a shift is we've got to seek the information from them, what they see, but then listen real closely into how do they see these things moving forward. There was a little bit of that in the presentation from the very first one. The point in that to me is we have to listen. And sometimes we tend to think we might know all the answers and the directions that we want to go, and we haven't really truly considered what might else be out there that is innovative for us to become that next kind of gotcha moment within our own factory. So, but great points. But now we also see that a lot of technology has made its way into manufacturing over the last several years. We've talked about the Internet of Things for a number of years. We have AI, we have robotics, wearables are now into the system, and of course, we all have the analytics and big data. So from a business process, how are we going about identifying what is exactly that problem that we're trying to work on? And then, of course, what is our parameters as far as a technical solution to that. David, I'll let you go first this time.
In terms of technical solution, again, a lot of it is constant innovation, constant invention and reinvention. But it's also about looking at a very, very wide, taking a very, very wide view of the new technology to be able to implement it well. There are just so many choices. I talked a moment ago about how nobody would today buy technology that it looked like 5 years ago. But also, when we look at back 5 years, there were very, very few choices. We might find one or two vendors that would have a particular technology, and if you wanted this thing, you went to those folks. And now it's a very, very wide open field, and it becomes important to assess with all the different vendors just how do you decide between them all. One of the things that's going to be most important is thinking about not only is the past that's in the rearview mirror, it's gone, but also where are we going in the future? Will it scale? Will it leverage cloud environments? Will it build for the future technology as best as we can discern? When you see a mountain from 50 miles away, it looks real pretty. When you get a little closer, it looks a little fuzzy. We see that point on the horizon. We think we know what the future looks like a little, as best as we can assess it. We need to select those technologies that are going to help us build in that direction.
You're on mute, Stuart.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
I think I really echo some of David's points on we wish we had a crystal ball for the future, but we don't. So I think we are more structured in terms of how do we bring in these technologies. And as David pointed out rightly, that it's so many opportunities, so many technologies. How can we spend our limited resource to figure out the best thing for us? So we normally start with something I would call discovery phase. That's where during your weekly stay innovative moment, go wild and figure out what's out there. That is our pool of encountering of new technologies. We're talking about spend maybe just hours to figure out what's going on. And from maybe hundreds of interesting technologies or interesting partners, we will filter those down to maybe a smaller number. In that phase, we're going into a little bit further exploration, and that's where we get deeper into what is the company's situation, the suppliers and whatnot, and what technology that they have, how mature it is, and how does that play or fit with our current process need or even our future process need. And we know that we do not have a crystal ball for the future. So we will be looking for something that's robust enough for us to, allow us to be flexible. With that, and with the help of here's all the vendors may come in, the consulting service may come in, they will help us to accelerate some of the next step, which is a proof of concepts. And that is where there's a lot of budget would be required, right? We know our vendors they have their business, and the consulting service will not come in for free. And so that is where we need to pick and be careful. The goal of that proof of concept is that we do prove out a certain technology is concept ready within a certain controlled environment. And hopefully we can move on to, we call them application ready. That's where it's still in a pilot mode, but a step closer to the production, to our factory. And fast forward, we always want a success from that application readiness pilot, and then we can say, yes, it's production ready. We can start implementing them. We can scale it out to different production lines and so on. And that's where we really get the real benefit from. So I know this is like a linear, but somehow you see the picture. It's trying to scale down from a lot of innovations to something that we can really bring to fruition. And I think one not a tip, one lessons learned that I would like to share is that we do want to standardize the framework so that people do not necessarily waste their time doing a lot of overlapping work, but we do not want to sacrifice the innovation. And and we need to be nimble, but we still want people to be innovative.
Great. Yeah, I think change is arguably something we all kind of struggle with. Change brings a lot of uncertainty in a business that we typically know what those outcomes are. That's been our process for many, many years, and we've continually worked on that.
Can I add one more comment real quick to what Annie was just saying?
Hmm?
And I think Annie gave a great, I talked a little bit about how do you find the new technology, and Annie talked so well about how to develop that and turn that into something that's working on the plant floor. Let me add one more piece, and it's actually the university and government research picture. That's something that I do a lot. At this point, I'm mostly a guest speaker. I'm not adjuncting at the moment, but I have a lot of connections with the universities, with government research, and that's where a lot of this technology originally comes from. So the process that Andy was talked about, it actually begins in university and government research. Just think about so how can we get involved with that? It's with having contact with universities. It's doing joint research projects. It's look at those summer interns. When you're interviewing summer interns, when they're working on your project this summer, look at your interns, what they are doing for the capital projects in school now are what the vendors are going to be selling us in 2 to 3 years. So if we want to know where the technology is going, we need to start by what are the most important things happening there. That points at the future, and we can start selecting now. We can get ahead of the competition by a few years and start feeding into the process that Andy just described, using those university resources through research projects with the universities and student interns.
Yep, no doubt. We are doing that as well. Thank you for bringing that one up. Very important.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, and it's actually a question we're going to talk about later. But let's maybe go ahead and do it now. It's about a workforce development process. Also, you see these individuals in the universities that maybe have these co-op programs. We get insights into what they're working on, but it also leads to how we work with outside partner companies to establish these affiliations or relationships for some future gain. Maybe David, you can expand on that a little bit more. How have you found is a good benchmark to not only use that university source or technical college source, but then expand that into these outside affiliations?
Well, I'll give you a real short answer, but I have to start by saying I am literally giving a talk on exactly this tomorrow. So shameless plug for tomorrow's talk. That's the academic to industry pipeline. But let me hit the highlights of what I think is important, and hopefully you'll still come to my talk and not say, oh, we've heard it all and we'll see something else. But there's a lot of great, wonderful things at the conference, so many valuable talks. It starts with, it's a funny thing. It starts with the relationship. Initially, the relationship is more important than the technology. People are very defensive of technology. They're worried about it being exploited. They're worried about other people using it and not giving credit. They're worried about universities doing free research that gets co-opted by other groups. It starts by building a relationship of trust. So start by building the relationships with the universities, with the government research centers, and that happens by having individual connections. So talk to the student interns. Yes, we're going to have them in our programs, but we also want to know about, well, what's the thing that's happening at your school? I'll give you an example. One of the things we do, I'm sure everybody's doing this. One of the things we're doing at Fiat Chrysler, now Stellantis, every week we have. It's kind of based, because remember, I got that academic connection, based on those academic colloquia that university research departments do. Once a week, we have one of those. We have an internal talk. Some data scientists give some talk on what they're working on. Well, when we have those student interns, we give them presentations on what they were doing in school. It isn't the project that they're assigned. We know about that here on the job, but also what are the other things? Make the connections with the professors. Find out what looks like a promising research project. Find the good research programs. Find out what's going on. My background is in astrophysics, and you kind of wonder what a person like me is doing in the auto industry. The fact is, the analytic arms of every financial company and most large corporations are staffed with theoretical physicists like me. It's very, very common for us to be doing forecasting. which is my own particular specialty. And so simply getting in touch with the basic science research that's happening, getting a hold of the researchers, building those relationships of trust, and then finding, okay, we're going to do this one little project and see what this turns into. The last thing, let me give the counter example. The last thing in the world you want to be, sorry, it's Kodak. Kodak invented the digital camera, but they saw themselves as a film company, thought it would cut into their film business. So they didn't manufacture the digital camera. They didn't see the technology of the future and did not pursue it. And now Kodak is gone. So what you want to do is start at the very, very beginning, find those technologies of the future, and then develop those relationships to grow them over time.
Annie.
I think Dave has summarized it very well, and I don't have too much to add on it.
So I agree equally with everything you've said, but one of the things that I keep picking up, and just curious how each of you see it, is we talk about change and avoidance of risk. These new technologies bring unknowns to us. Again, back in our world where we don't like much change as it is. My question is, do you think additive small changes are a better approach than these huge swings? Because that can impact who else we maybe need support from, be it the financial organizations, et cetera, to fund these projects for improvement.
May I take it?
Please.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. Everything comes with a risk, and especially when we talk about these new technologies, some are really scope-wise is really big. And if we jump into that, and yes, almost every aspect of it would come with risk, including people, including the technology maturity itself, including the process that every company has currently. A disruption to any of those itself could have brought tremendous risk that we need to deal with. So again, we don't really see what is going to happen, and that's why uncertainties is called risks. So I think by chunking them into smaller pieces, it is more manageable. When a risk becomes reality, we will have a way to deal with it, and that would also give us the cushion to learn as well as to stay focused on these technologies. We do not want to throw ourselves into the ocean before we actually know what water is about. So I think I would advocate chunk them down into a manageable piece. Small or big, it depends on where you evaluate your risk, and then try to mobilize those toward not exactly where you're heading, but at least roughly the direction that you're heading. And for instance, the last thing you want to do is, okay, let's do one project that pilot IoT, that pilot AI, that pilot additive manufacturing, digital twin, all the things together. That's probably too much to handle at once.
That's a part of that strategic plan, how you're going to build on it. And if you don't have a clear vision, you absolutely create confusion and just frustration with very high-skilled people who want to be successful. So it's our responsibility to help them be successful. David, anything additional?
Yeah, well, one thing, completely agree with what Annie's saying. Let me add one thing, and this actually comes off something that she said a little bit earlier. Incremental, yes, but also let's multiply that. Use that POC strategy that we all use, but have POCs for several different technologies and try out which one works better. For example, one of the things we're seeing right now is there are many, many, many different cloud providers, and I'm sure there'll be another one next month. One of the things we've seen in a very rapid evolution, just imagine how many different conferencing tools you've seen for the first time in the last year. They've come out of the woodwork with all sorts of new ones. Well, try them out. Have these POCs check out all the different ones. I don't know if we're going to use Zoom or Google or GoToMeeting or any of stuff we haven't heard about yet as our conferencing platform of the future. But I do know that we've had an opportunity to try them out, see their performances, and have some different teams check them out. Okay, well, we're going to use this in this one particular group. As what Annie was saying, do it incrementally. Or we're going to use this one for calendars, or this one for live streaming, or this one for individual meetings with small groups. You can break it up into small pieces, do POCs on multiple technology, and it winnows it out until in the end you have one technology that's selected. So incremental, but it's also a horse race.
So kind of a different question. Can you share with us any cases of such as wearable technologies that you've been able to successfully implement, or maybe learn some lessons from to prevent issues in the future? Annie?
Are you thinking glasses type of wearables? Or are you thinking watches or anything that's a wearable?
Anything that could be a wearable. I mean, Google Glasses types always come up, but there's a lot of other technologies. So any type of.
So I may not be the best person to talk about this. My colleague should be, but because working with him, and I do see some of the amazing work that he's been working on. And I'm talking about Marty Smith, who is a technical specialist in extended reality. So that gets a lot into the smart wears. I mean, especially into the AR and VR space. Without going into technology, and I do see that it is these virtual and AR related technology are very helpful. And the only thing that I would like to bring up there is, because I know that is not going to be new to anyone, the only thing I would like to get to is that the scale of that may not mean every station of my plant will need to be equipped with one of those wearables. As an example, we would need to be very, very tentative to where it fits best. We need to fit the technology to our process or to the jobs, not the other way around. So I think with a lot of advancement going on with that technology, I do see it will become more and more comfortable for us, plant people as well as us to use. If you think about it, in a virtual situation, I cannot shake your hand, but the XR technology will enable eventually a holograms of all of us. We are in the virtual table, and you sit next to me, but it's not you, but the holograms. So I think that is very intriguing. So, and we do see that is part of the innovation, right? We see that is interesting, and then we figure out what is the benefit it will bring to our workforce. So that is the one I cannot speak a lot to, but the other one, the watch type, it may not be watch, it may be anything, like you can carry with your pocket or put it around your wrist. I think the key point there is when we talk about wearable, a common theme is it's hands-free. And the wearable watch being a wearable, I think it's has a lot of potential. I'm not talking about the steps and whatnot, but there's a lot of sensors that we can build into a form fit of a watch. It could be a vibration sensor that we can use to say if I'm trying to feel something, and then that watch, again, the watch is being the form and fit that builds in a lot of my sensors in it. Then I can use that technology to, bring that one to our plant floor, and it does not bother us in terms of it's still hands-free. And knowing that we still have quite a lot of not much listening we need to do in the plant, and notification we need to receive from the plant floor. And me personally do think there's a good opportunities to look into those hands-free type of watch-like devices or wearables.
And yeah, so it sounds like too, David, and maybe Stellantis is doing this, it's really application type specific. It could be problem specific to some issue going on the floor, but it is not in all cases something you're going to scale and, as Annie has said, just put them everywhere because they're not useful. They're actually probably more cumbersome to the person doing the work.
let me have some thoughts on wearables. I have probably a different perspective. Well, I talk to you, I think I have a different perspective on this. Something to add to this. If there's a mindset I could change in people's thinking, it would be this. Think of the vehicle itself as the ultimate wearable. I mean, think about a wearable, what a wearable does. It can be, fit, it can be a watch, it can be glasses, what have you. What does a wearable do? It collects information about the environment and analyzes it, it shares it with you, it guides what you're doing at the moment. Vehicles have all of these functionalities. The connected vehicle, the smart vehicle, is the ultimate wearable. It goes everywhere you go, and it provides that same kind of functionality. So what can we learn from this? What it means is we have to get different parts of the company talking to each other, because the people developing the connected vehicle technology, the smart vehicle technology, where it's always running diagnostics on the car and maybe connects you with a call center. Companies have been manufacturing, they've been putting this on a dealer's lots for a couple of decades now, and the technology continued to advance. But that can teach us so much about manufacturing. How can we make the plant operator's experience like the experience of driving in a connected vehicle? What does that mean for IoT, connecting the person, the vehicle, getting information about the environment? How is that vehicle being operated? We can learn so much from ourselves in other parts of the company, thinking about the vehicle itself as the ultimate wearable. We can get the people who are working in smart technology, constantly run diagnostics, connected vehicle, and we can apply that same technology to how those vehicles are produced and give the people in the plants the same experience as a vehicle operator. They could be, operating any of a number of machines on the plant floor. Let's target the very kind of experience that we already know how to do for the person driving the vehicle. So that when they drive to work in the morning, they close the door, they walk into the plant, they go to their station, and they have that same kind of information about the environment, early warnings of problems, and all of these other things. Everything's interconnected. There are forecasts of, you're going to, run out of, you're going to need some preventative maintenance in so many hours, and a little light flashes, when you're getting low on what have you, oil or something that's needed in the machine. We've got the people who are creating this wearable kind of technology for the driver. Let's make that happening on the manufacturing floor as well. There's a lot that can be done that we're doing to create driver experience. It can teach us how to make the manufacturing process work better. The vehicle is the ultimate wearable.
I think your point, especially when we talk about maintenance and uptime within our facilities, it's something we strive all to have, but it has to be the right information to help our individuals support us in the correct way. Too much information is also not a good thing in these cases. So we're quickly approaching the time when we have to open it up for Q&A, but I want to try to get in just two more questions or thoughts. The concept of digital twins has been brought up throughout the day. Can you share some thoughts on what the capabilities and benefits might be for the manufacturing sector? David, you want to go first?
I want to make sure we're going in the same direction, because I've seen the digital twin used a couple of different ways. So for digital twins, one of the things that I'm looking at in manufacturing are multiple machines doing a particular operation in a plant, but they're being handled differently, or we're doing A/B testing between them. And what you see is that in addition to actually running the plant and making the vehicles, that there's a constant sense of experimentation, of testing new ideas that's running in the background all the time. And we can use these digital twins to do this, so that every time we do a plant operation, every day that goes by, we're going to make a lot of vehicles. Or if you're in a powertrain plant, you're going to make a lot of powertrains, parts, what have you, whatever the purpose of that plant is. But at the same time, every single day, By using digital twins, we can run an experiment. We can get smarter every day. And every day is going to learn, well, okay, this was a high humidity day. Here are some of the defects that we saw that increase in likelihood. Robert Bonda has done some good talks on this. He's at BASF, wrote a really good paper on that, published in one of the IEEE. And so having those digital twins means that we can have a constant sense of experimentation, and that drives improvement in the technology.
Annie.
I think I would probably have a different perspective on the definition of digital twin, and because that is my full-time job. So in my world, in our world here, the digital twin is really the digital data aggregation or the digital replication for something that is physical. And one example could be a digital twin for a piece of equipment. And we can also say a digital twin of my plant, a digital twin of a person, an operator. So, boy, I can talk about this for an hour, but to keep it really brief, I think I've already passed to the phase where I need to convince people why digital twin is useful. But if you put yourself into the question, what if you have a digital twin for yourself? Remember, digital twin means that the data that describing yourself or related to yourself, it is the form, it's made available to you through that digital twin of yourself. That means at any time you know your schedule and you have a means to get to your schedule. Like today, at this time you need to jump in here. You're going to meet these people, and also along that, where is my vital signs? Anything that you might be interested in, and where's my text stand? If we got all the information together, we are not saying that those data are not available. They are. The digital twin benefit is that you get to the data quickly and get to them right at that moment without searching for it. I would want to conclude with one example. I don't know whether you watch a TV series that's called Doraemon. Doraemon is a robotic cat that travels back in time from 22nd century, and he has this 4-dimension or 4D pocket. He can put everything into that pocket, and he reaches in and bring anything he needs out. Replace that with a digital piece of data. For me, I would not want to manage any data, but I know I have a new pet today. Its name is such. I've put it into my pocket. 10 years later, when I share this with, my kids and whatnot, I said, remember that day when I had this meeting with Stuart and Dave and so on? I actually put a pet into my pocket. That is the beauty of digital twin. It's the data aggregation for history, for today. May not be the future, but a plan for the future.
Very interesting. Well, I see Andrew's joined us. Got through some technical difficulties. The last question, and I'll put for all of us to look is, or thought process is, what if we were to offer a single piece of advice to those in the audience today or to anyone within our companies about smart manufacturing and this automation journey? What would that one piece of advice that we would give to that individual? David or Andrew, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hopefully you can actually hear me. Okay, yes. Great. So I apologize for all the technical difficulties getting on here. I've tried about every different configuration I can. So if I'm going to give one piece of advice, it's start with the problems you want to solve and then build up from there. And you can't jump to the solution. You can't jump to the intelligence until you know what you're trying to improve, and you build the data and the connections that'll get you to that solution.
Great. David, you want to go next?
One piece of advice: change is a way of life. We talked about that, but we talk about rapid innovation. We talk about how the technology moves very, very quickly. What this also means, change as a way of life, also means no sacred cows. We're not going to get devoted to one particular technology because it's not going to last. We're not going to get devoted to one particular solution because somebody will be selling you a better solution next year. And I may be so totally invested in this one that I'm not going to look at this other one that comes later. No, that's not what we want to do. Change as a way of life. And what that means is whatever we're doing now, we know that we're going to have other things happening in the future. The most important part of the person in changing technology isn't the technology. It's the people. It's not the technology that gives us the solutions. It's the people that develop and implement it. And those people need to have that focus on change as a way of life. The technology will never be a final answer. Some vendor is going to have a better technology next year or the year after. And it might even be the ones we're looking at now, they've developed their products further. But change as a way of life, as a mindset for the people, is what's going to make it drivable, sustainable, and we can't be devoted, I found this solution, we're going to use it forever. Those days are gone. Whatever solution we find now, there's a better one coming down the road.
Annie.
I am the one constantly asking for a budget. So I think I'll provide my wishful thinking there. I think if you're really trying to get this thing out and everyone has a limited budget, what I would suggest is try to make your maybe 5-year plan, 3-year plan in a self-sustainable way. What I mean by that is do some quick wins in the first maybe few months or a year, and you can start seeing return right away. And by leveraging those avoidance in cost, for instance, or whatever you're getting from introducing that new technology, trying to get to the point that you can actually leverage those savings into funding your next move. That way, I think it's a win-win situation for both whoever's trying to develop the technology, as well as the whole company who needs to move on, right? We need to sell cars, as an example. So make it self-sustainable.
Great. I think all the points that each of you shared are correct. I also sum it up in mindset change. Change is here, and we've all got to adjust to it. And that's every person within the entire organization has to understand what the individual company or division is trying to achieve. There is a way forward. We just have to open our eyes and make sure that we're supporting one another instead of pushing back and saying you can't do. The question is, tell me how I can do it to help everyone move forward. So great. It's certainly nice to meet all of you. Mark, maybe you're coming back in. I'm not sure. I see that there's some Q&A over there. Let's see what's in there. There is a question that I see on here. How do you manage resources to implement new technologies on the field while you keep on being pushed to meet higher throughput? Do you have a specific team process in place to onboard this new technology from a supplier or a partner? Andrew, you want to go first, or Annie?
I can help to answer, but Andrew, feel free.
No, I think I was trying to read the question as you read it there. The question: how do we try to drive the innovation at the same time that we're trying to drive the throughput and build the team? And I think the answer to that is, you can have a dedicated team that's working parallel to the process, but most of us probably don't have that luxury. So it's really about finding the ways to weave this work into the day-to-day needs and work of the teams that are out there executing, in our case, vehicle programs, or, that they're engaged in the development so that they take an ownership of it, and it sort of happens naturally hand in hand. And, we don't try to do it sequentially. We don't try to implement the technology, then go implement, the day-to-day stuff. We try to do it at the same time and show the benefits along the way, and that helps drive the engagement and the activities of the team to make it happen, and sort of take ownership of it.
Annie?
Yeah, in Ford, we do have a separate organization, which is the advanced manufacturing function. They will be more active and more like full-time looking into these new technologies and try to implement them. But when it gets into the implementation phase, it is a joint effort with the current process team. It is also important for the current process team to include this type of, well, for lack of terms, objectives, I would say, on their day-to-day responsibilities. I mean, we do not want to address this when the priority is conflicting, right? There's always a need to improve, and there's always a need to keep the throughput going. And we cannot, if one person is staffed for 100% of the throughput, you do not expect the priority of the other improvement piece to fit in. So I think that needs to be addressed from the get-go, from the organizational staffing planning. And we do have the luxury to at least have some responsibility or ownership from the actual plant to work with us or to focus on implementing these technologies. While part of their function is still making sure the production runs as needed.
Yeah, Annie, I think you said it even better than I did there. But yeah, that's the idea. People can bring the ideas, but engaging the operational teams early to help them see the benefit and gain the ownership and make it part of their goals, I think is the way you pull it off. I think you said that very well.
Thank you. Yes, we learned that from sort of lessons learned. You do not want to be an intruder to the plant by saying, oh, yeah, go ahead and use this. No, if the plant owns these technologies, we try to link them to the technologies.
But buy-in and communication are centered to every organization.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let me add one more suggestion to that. One thing to add. I agree completely. One of the things that I found effective, it's early in the year. Whether you've written your goals, you're going to work on your goals or whatever. Everybody in their annual goals is going to have something around reduce costs, reduce expenses, reduce resources, streamline the process. That's something that everybody knows about. But at the same time, what we need is to have every person, from the CEO to the janitor, look at what the new technology is. And we can move forward even in an environment where, yes, we have constrained resources and we need to tighten things up all the time. That's always going to be in our goals. But we can also have technology champions. So parallel with, yes, all of us have that goal to become more efficient, have individuals within the organization be champions for some particular technology. I talked about having the horse race between different ways of solving a particular problem. Let me give a historical example. One group that has done this very well for a long time has been the defense industry, where you might have multiple defense systems designed to look at one particular situation. Going back, this is a long time ago, but going back 100 years ago, we can look at following World War I. There was a big question: do we build more and bigger battleships? But then you had this couple of people over here that said, no, you guys are all crazy. The aircraft carrier is the future. We know how that played out. But here's the thing that we can learn from that. There were some people that were dedicated to, we're going to use this technology. It happened to be battleships. Another champion that said, no, we should use this technology. It happened to be aircraft carriers. We had technology champions, and that drove the technology forward. So as part of the organization, have, for whatever technology you're looking at, all the different options, have a person whose job is, part of their job is to be the person who advocates for a particular technological solution. Everyone is going to have efficiency as their goal, but make new technology one of the goals for every person in the company. Find a technology champion.
Mark, I see you joined us.
Yeah, apologies about that. I thought I was live on the session. I think there was a bit of a technical glitch there, so apologies about that. I don't think you could hear me when I was talking. But
right
thank you very much for... Perfect. So everyone can hear me loud and clear now. Perfect. So it doesn't look like there's any other questions. So I'd just like to thank everyone, not just for being here today, but you've all helped me. I've spoken to each and every one of you on and off for the past year and shared a lot of great insights. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for being here today as well. Personally, I thought the discussion was really, really interesting. I know we're going to hear from David and tomorrow. So we'll go into quite a bit of detail around the topic that he mentioned earlier. And Stuart, we're going to hear from him again in about 20 minutes or so. So once again, thank you very much. We'll take a break now. So a message for the audience. Take the next 20 minutes to meet with the exhibitors. If you look on the left-hand side there of your screen, there's an icon which says exhibition. If you click on that, it'll take you through to the exhibition area. We have a number of sponsors. Ultimately, these guys are here to help you with, they've got specific solutions that can help you solve problems. So do visit them. They might have some new technology that they can talk about. But drop by, pick up the handouts, watch the videos, arrange to meet with them face to face, drop them a message. Basically, just take the opportunity to engage with one another and network for the next 20 minutes. Otherwise, once again, thank you very much. Great to see you all, and I'll see you all again shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Everyone.
Great session.